So we're joined by Dilly Hussain, Deputy Editor of Britain's Muslim news and opinion website 5 Pillars UK, and Caroline Farrow from Catholic Voices. You're both very welcome to the programme. Dilly, if I can start with you. Following the Paris attacks, there was a spike in anti-Muslim hate crimes in London and across the UK, including physical violence. Can preaching Christian ideas in public ever be placed in the same category as that?
I don't believe it can. I mean, Christianity in Europe underwent a systematic reformation through secularization. So I don't think modern Christianity poses any kind of ideological or worldview threat to Western liberal democracy as much as Islam, or what's commonly known as Islamism, does. And the spike in anti-Muslim attacks that we saw after the Paris attacks was very similar to what we saw after the Charlie Hebdo attacks. So in that regard, there seems to be an ideological framework from the current UK government which basically has criminalised and demonised certain aspects, normative aspects of the Islamic faith, and basically labelled it extremist.
Caroline Farrow, the UK is a country that protects and values the right to free speech. Does that include saying things that might offend Muslims?
Yes, I think it does, but we do still have laws about hate speech, and I think there's a very delicate line to be drawn. So we need to be careful to protect Christians and our right to speak, but also understand that there is certain speech that should be that should be sort of subject to sanctions if it incites widespread hatred and violence. But it's very subjective what kind of speech that is. So
Indeed,
we need
it is subjective, very subjective.
Because I just want to bring in what the Bishop of Worcester said, who sits in the Lords. He told the UKIP peer today that questions phrased in this manner are not conducive to building positive relations between faith communities. So why do Christians now have a problem with this?
Well, I think, to be honest, I think most Christians don't have a problem in wanting to build relationships with people of other faiths. You know, certainly the Pope is encouraging interfaith relationships all the time. You know, he's right, we should be reaching out with dialogue. But where we do have a problem is where people say, okay, you can't quote sections of the Catholic Catechism, or you can't quote sections of the Bible because this is designed to cause offence. You know, this is going to upset people. You know, actually there shouldn't be a law against upsetting people.
Dilly Hussain, let me just interject. Why do you think this issue was raised today in the House of Lords, though? Take up that point, if you will.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I mean, we can look at the semantics and the symptoms of this current issue, but ultimately this is what it is. We live in a secular country, and as I mentioned earlier, Christianity has undergone a systematic reformation. Therefore, any kind of politicized version of Christianity, or any religion for that matter, will be seen as problematic. So as Caroline rightly stated, it is highly problematic if you start saying, well, you can't quote this verse from the Bible and you can't quote this verse from the Quran because it may cause offense or it may be seen as hate speech. Ultimately, free speech is a very subjective concept. It has double standards, and it's actually a very politicized concept. It seems to be one rule for one group of people and another rule for another.
Okay,
so
well,
I would prefer to actually look beyond this.
Okay, sorry for interjecting, but Caroline, I want to bring up a point here that is important overall in the country. The Muslim population is growing in the UK. Do you think that Britain can still be considered a Christian country? Because looking at a British social attitudes poll of last year, 49% of UK residents, the largest in the poll, say they're of no religion. 42% describe themselves as Christian, less than that.
Well, yes, I think we can still be described as a Christian country because our cultural roots and our heritage is in Judeo-Christianity, and we see that spread through our legal system, through the language that we use every day, through the literature of canon, our canon of literature. It's embedded in our roots and in our history.
But can you see how the Muslim population, a sizable Muslim population, might have an issue with that?
I can see how they have.
No, not at all. I'd like to interject there.
Okay.
I mean, look, There's no such thing as a perceived Muslim takeover of this country, nor is there any kind of sensitivities with regards to perceiving Britain as a Christian state. In fact, I'd argue and go as far as to say that many British Muslims would actually prefer this country to be a Christian state, to be ruled by Christian laws, because what we actually currently have here is a set of secular liberal laws which again has double standards and is very selective in the way it's implemented. Now, whilst I appreciate Britain's history is rooted in Christianity, you can't deny the fact that not just Britain but Europe as a whole went through a system of reformation.
Okay, but just coming back to today, Dilly, I want to bring this to you, Dilly. Starting from April, anti-Muslim hate crimes will be registered as a separate category. Do you think that's helpful?
I think it's helpful. I think it's long overdue. However, the reason why it's got to that stage is because minimal to zero actual work was being done to monitor and counter Islamophobic attacks in the first place. But again, we're very easy to look at certain measures, and I feel that this is a carrot and stick approach by Mr. Cameron, because when he did announce these measures, he announced it in the ideological framework of countering extremism. Now, what does monitoring Islamophobic hate crime got anything to do with counter extremism? So once again, we saw from Mr. Cameron a carrot and stick approach. Yes, it's good. It should be appreciated and acknowledged that from April onwards, Islamophobic hate crimes will be recorded. However, why was it pitched and announced in the framework of counter-extremism?
So,
and secondly,
okay. Sorry, I just want to bring it to Caroline because we're just running out of time here. Caroline, let's bring up that point. So there's a lot of consensus between both of you. Do you think that today's debate was actually a waste of time in the House?
I think so, possibly yes, because we've seen legislation recently, or we've seen a recent court case where a Belfast preacher was acquitted because he quoted sections of the Bible in a sermon or a homily, which he was entitled to do, and he was had up for hate speech just for stating his beliefs. Now, he wasn't inciting violence, and I think everybody would agree, particularly on today where we've got Holocaust Memorial Day, that it is important that people are protected because of their religion. But what we're seeing actually is that people are being protected because of other characteristics, because of, say, for example, what sexual orientation they have. And then anybody who has a different, say, religious-based view of that are the ones who are finding themselves at the end of persecution. So we need to find a way. And it's really interesting, actually, that Dilly and I have consensus, because I see what's happening in Europe. If we are getting a spread of extremism, it is precisely because we have a moral vacuum. We have a liberal sort of secular ideology, an ideology of relativism where everything goes.
Okay, we got a point taken for that. Dilly Hussain, just leave the last word to you.
I mean, look, I think I'm more or less total agreement with everything Caroline has said, and I don't think it was a wasted debate. I think it's very important to highlight that it's not just Islam or Muslims that do feel threatened by these secular liberal policies. Very soon we'll find that Christian faith schools, and I'm sure people from the Jewish community, will feel the pressure from these policies. And these policies, whilst the history of this country is deep-rooted in Christianity, the actual policies is secular liberal, and they're quite militant and quite hard in the way they approach people. I mean, everyone has rights, everyone seems to be defended except people of faith, and this is very dangerous.
We appreciate both your thoughts and your time. Dilly Hussain, Deputy Editor of Britain's Muslim News and Opinion website 5 Pillars UK, and Caroline Farrow from Catholic Voices. Thank you both very much.